5 award-winning minutes with Stephen Seidel. You don't need a trophy to be an award winner. We have some amazing individuals on today's show. We're going to talk a little bit more with Bill Palifka as well as Alan Bray, and they're going to share more about their companies and ways that they're creating an impact. Thank you for joining the show, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to have you guys on here. I'm going to start with you, Bill. Bill, tell us a little bit about Cymonix and how it got started. You said it's been a bit. You guys have been going for about 3 years. Tell me what it was that made you say, I need to start working a little bit more deep into the data management and the way that these companies are using that intelligent edge.
Yeah, no, Stephen, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Cymonix. So, originally Cymonix started out as a cybersecurity firm. We were looking at automating attack path analysis. And so if you break down Cymonix, it's Cy for cyber, Monix to stop bad people from doing bad things. And but what we realized was that if you look at cyber, it's nothing more than a data management problem. A lot of information, fast moving data. And so we were looking at how do you manage that information so that you can see the whole in a new creative way. So we started leveraging the power of what we call adaptive graph technology that is really working on human machine teaming. And that was allowing us to see things that we wouldn't normally see. So we very quickly learned that, everybody has data problems, and so we shifted, and now we're helping companies in many different ways.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. And speaking of data and sharing information, I want to talk to Alan a little bit more about TalkDEI, now known as SourceIQ. You do some, AI-driven technology over the cloud. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started as well.
Yes, so my background is in tech. I specifically did B2B sales. I worked for artificial intelligence machine learning company called Splunk, now acquired by Cisco. So, a lot of how I got started, just taking all of these business softwares and looking at impact as a whole and different gaps in various different socioeconomic environments. How could you use technology and data to innovate in those areas is really how I started. In 2019, I decided to quit my job, and 5 years later, it took me a lot of, coming up with different prototypes, testing different services and closing different gaps. And essentially, I ended up in supplier diversity, which is under procurement. And so I built a tool to streamline how corporations manage, source, and analyze data for their suppliers, and also allowing those suppliers to have a unified space for enterprise contracting opportunities. So, yes, as you said, we were TalkDEI, we were focused on supplier diversity, but now we're focused on suppliers as a whole, because after doing so much research, we understood that there's various different technological gaps in the procurement and supply chain space as a whole.
Great. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to jump right back over to Bill briefly. When you're talking about managing and we're talking about data, we're talking about numbers, whether they're binary or analog, but the data itself has seen a huge shift, in the past 5 to 10 years. Where do you envision it going in the next 5 to 10 years and beyond?
Yeah, I think what we really have to start looking at is what happens when computational power matches the ability to kind of keep up with AI, and the ability to unlock all those hidden insights inside of the data that we're seeing. When you're able to start to give different types of structure and partnering with the computer, the ability to see things just becomes so much more visible. And I think that's really where we're heading in the world. But to do that, AI can't be a black box. It can't be just something that's creating content for us. It really has to start with remapping your data, giving it better starting points, and really starting to allow AI to help fill in the holes that we have with our data, not necessarily come up with it all from scratch.
Sure, I agree 100% in terms of filling those holes, overcoming those obstacles. Alan, what's been one hole or one obstacle that has presented itself that you weren't aware of prior to starting, or that maybe the common consumer may not have visibility around that you were able to discover with your work?
I understand that, like, there's several holes in my space, but I would say that nobody's keeping track of, specifically in my space, how they're allocating contract and finance opportunities to various different communities and various different classifications. There's no reporting behind that. And so one thing that's very important for me is utilizing those data endpoints like machine learning to be able to take that historical data process to create efficiencies around how we decide to do business from an inclusion standpoint. And I think that's one of the biggest, it's several gaps, but I would say it's just reporting processes, small processes that can really be efficient utilizing artificial intelligence.
That's great. Well, guys, I know it's been quick, but I really appreciate you coming on board to the Daily News Network with 5 award-winning minutes to talk about data management, AI-driven cloud-based sourcing technology. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Alan, for joining the show. If you could leave us with one word of wisdom around our data and the management of it, what would it be? I'll start with you, Alan. You go first.
I would just say structure your data, right? And create a plan around how you can use your data in various different spaces. There's no such thing as unuseful data. So the earlier as a startup that you can start using tools like Datadog and machine learning technology like Databricks, do it so that you can keep track of those processes.
Great. And how about you, Bill? What would be one piece for any business owner to know about, successfully managing on their end?
Yeah, that data comes in all types of format, right? We have structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. We have the data that's centered around that data. We have data that we use for enriching purposes or not. Learning to manage all those layers of data to build a unified view, and giving you a good starting point so you have one consolidated angle to look at from your data so that everybody's talking about it in a common way, and then filling in the holes with AI. I think that's really going to be the next step. And extending on what Alan was saying, I mean, these tools like Databricks or Snowflake or Datadog, they're giving you the access in the pipelines, but now that organization, right, how we're managing it is really going to become very, very important moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, gents, for joining today. It's a 5 award-winning minutes. If you want to learn more about Bill and you want to learn more about Alan and their companies, please visit dailynewsnetwork.com, and there'll be all the data that you can get right there. Thanks for joining.